The Path of Meditation, Part 1, Vipassana Meditation. This video introduces some of the basics of Buddhist meditation, ethics, and philosophy of mind, with the aim of preparing and empowering the meditator for lifelong practice. The goal of these practices is the reduction and eventual cessation of chronic existential suffering, with equanimity replacing suffering as the default mode. This information can be studied and then set aside in favor of direct, personal experience and experimentation. Many of the subtleties of the process are naturally beyond words, but can be communicated clearly at a feeling level, through metaphor and symbol. Equanimity is a subtle, calm emotional state where we can experience the whole range of emotion, from happiness to sorrow, while remaining unshaken at our core. The basic practice. Meditation is simple and complex. The Buddha said, "Things we frequently dwell and ponder upon will soon become the inclination of the mind." In a way, it's as simple as that. We practice dwelling and pondering upon calmness, equanimity, insight, love, and compassion in meditation, so that it becomes the natural inclination of the mind more and more in day-to-day life. A few things to keep in mind as we approach the basic practice. There is no failure in meditation. Just by trying, you are succeeding, even if the experience feels difficult at first. Set aside pop culture misconceptions around clearing the mind. Mental activity is part of the practice, and at no point do we have to push it away. At its core, the path is about accepting ourselves as we are, knowing, like a seedling flower, we possess an innate perfection even if we are not yet in bloom. Ethical conduct and finding the middle between extremes. The active side of the path is ethics and compassion towards oneself and to others, living in a way that doesn't add to others' burdens or your own. When we live kindly and lightly, we become beacons of healing in a way that spreads outwards like a ripple. If we live without regard for self and others, that outward ripple is one of suffering. Practicing moderation and caring for the body as much as possible, through sleep, nutrition, and exercise, goes hand in hand with meditation practice. Kindness towards self makes kindness towards others easier, and vice versa. The first steps. Before jumping into hardcore meditation, it's okay to ease into it with practices that regulate the nervous system and create baseline safety within. Progressive relaxation, guided visualizations, somatic work, and breathing exercises are a great way to make the inner space safe and tolerable. Another perfect way to get started is the practice of just sitting with no particular goal and watching what happens with curiosity while trying to do as little as possible outside of observing. For some, the entire path can be traveled by just sitting. Ancient knowledge, Samatha and Vipassana. Most of the meditation you will encounter in the world today is rooted in the process of Samatha and Vipassana. The names may be new to you, but if you've meditated before, the practice could feel familiar. These two processes happen at the same time during meditation. This practice is all about attention. The attention is something we have some degree of free will over. In our default state, it's being pulled in different directions all the time, but if we sit intentionally, we can begin to direct our attention or even use it to learn about ourselves. The attention is like a flashlight, and whatever it is pointed at any given time is our object of attention. Making contact. As we sit and observe inward, the attention makes contact with different things that arise. We can put these things in 4 categories, traditionally called the 4 foundations of mindfulness or 4 frames of reference. These 4 are experiences in the body, sense experiences, thought experiences, and complex multidimensional experiences like emotions. In our day-to-day life, these things are constantly arising and fading, driving our behavior. Early in the practice, we notice that we are not the doer of these things, we are the experiencer. It is an ongoing process, like a river or stream of cause and effect that we're participating in, but not creating directly or capable of curating through force of will alone. In this way, mental activity is just something that is happening, just information, in the same way as sounds, not our fault or our responsibility to do anything about, aside from watching them rise and fade again and perhaps learning something from. This can be very liberating once we experience it directly. This is why there is no clearing the mind, but we do begin to feel a sort of clarity as our relationship shifts to seeing thoughts as information. In the same way as sounds, some thoughts are helpful, warning us of danger or leading us to safety, but the vast majority are just background noise that we tend to obsess over. Our obsession ends when the light turns on, and we realize it's just been background noise all along. Once we see it as it is, even if we turn the light back off, there is no going back to our old way of being. We have taken the first steps on the path. The practice. To do Samatha and Vipassana, we can examine the two individually and then experiment with putting them together. In many ways, especially in the beginning, they happen at the same time naturally, whether we intend them to or not. In Samatha, we rest the attention as effortlessly as possible on an object of meditation, usually the in and out breath, because it is always there and it is a good stable anchor in the present moment and a microcosm of the rising and fading nature of all phenomena. Vipassana happens when another object of attention, a body experience, a sense experience, or a thought experience, comes along and takes the spotlight of attention away from the breath. We can let it happen, greet whatever arises with curiosity, and watch it play out. We can observe whether it's a feeling in the body, a sense experience, a thought, or an emotion. We can observe whether our evaluation of the experience is one of pleasantness, unpleasantness, or somewhere in between. We can even ask ourselves if there is some progress to be made by engaging with this thought, or whether we can just watch it run its course with the curiosity of a child watching a butterfly, captivated, but once it's gone, on to the next thing. Then, once it feels right, or once we notice our slipping away into a stream of thought and feel ready to return, we can reset the light of attention onto the breath. This is one rep of Samatha Vipassana, leaving the breath and then returning gently, with newfound insight. In the beginning, it is expected to sometimes return for one breath only to be immediately swept away again. We can gain skill quickly in the beginning, as each sweeping away is an opportunity to experience information about ourselves, and then practice returning to the breath. Whatever comes up, if we encounter it mindfully without clinging or pushing away, we convert the experience into liberating insight. In some ways, we can see this as letting the bottled, burdensome emotions arise a little bit at a time and practice letting them go. When we make contact with an experience and engage in clinging or pushing away, the arising experience becomes replanted in our minds in some way, rebottled, and will arise again for our future selves to deal with. Some burdensome experiences can be liberated quickly, while others can be deeply rooted and intertwined, recurring again and again before we feel any movement towards liberation. The secret is, as always, compassion, acceptance, and at times forgiveness towards oneself and others. The recognition that we are worthy of our own love and we are complete and whole just as we are at our core. So to practice Samatha and Vipassana, we watch the breath, open to whatever else arises. In many ways we have little other choice. This is simply how it will play out, whether or not we try to exert extra control or not. Over time, we become the attention, the space where it is all happening. We realize we've been playing the role of both victim and perpetrator of the thoughts, able to beat ourselves down while somehow believing that inner critic is really us. When we step back, we see the perpetrator is just echoes from the past. the ghosts of our past selves' suffering that have impacted us deeply. We find a new space between contact and reaction, where we can choose to exercise our newfound skill of curiosity and liberation, instead of just being pulled along by habitual reactions of pushing away or craving an escape. In this way, we walk the path towards liberation from suffering. Communicating through metaphor and symbol. Metaphor 1, like water. This metaphor imagines the mind as a body of water, and uses this imagery to explore the nature and substance of the mental activity that we can make contact with. This metaphor also demonstrates why there is no possibility of forcing the mind to clear, and how to position ourselves in relation to arising mental activity as the experiencer instead of the doer. I imagine a pond or lake in the forest. This lake is the mind. When we meditate, we can sit on its sandy bank peacefully. We can see our moment-to-moment experience as fish jumping and swimming, birds landing and taking off, wind rustling past. All of these things create ripples on the surface of the water. In the same way, thoughts, feelings in the body, sense experiences, emotions create ripples in the water of the mind. If we want the surface of the lake to become calm, still, and clear, there is no action to take. We just sit on the bank and wait, knowing it is in the nature of water to return to stillness. Sometimes it is just little momentary glimpses when the fish, birds, and wind all happen to lull at once. But with practice and effortlessness, in observing without clinging or aversion, and with some grace from the wheel of circumstance, the pond can become calm and serene more and more of the time. If we were to dive into the water and try to force it into tranquility, smoothing the surface desperately with our hands, we would only create more waves. So instead, we just sit on the bank and begin to see the subtle beauty in the inner landscape, and in time the season naturally turns. The activity slows and the water becomes still and clear more and more. In this way, we walk the path of mindfulness by simply resting on the bank. Metaphor 2, the chariot. This metaphor explores our relationship to the 4 foundations of mindfulness, or the 4 frames of reference, the categories of experience that can arise during meditation or in day-to-day life, and how we can use meditation to take the reins of our free will instead of being pulled haphazardly by competing urges and habitual reactions driven by craving and aversion. This metaphor will be revisited from other angles in future chapters. I imagine a chariot or cart pulled by a team of 4 horses. The us that is us, our true selves, our attention, is the driver, or at least they're trying their best to drive. The horses are body, sense, mind, and emotion. For most of us, we're on a wild ride being pulled in all directions and sometimes wondering whether we're even driving on the road anymore. It seems at first that there's no way to control the whims of these horses. But when we learn the power of attention, the idea that where the attention goes, the energy goes, we can begin to unlock the secret of driving the wagon. We practice shining the nurturing light of attention on each horse, one at a time, as they call out for it. Over time, we learn their personalities, they become familiar, and we accept them as they are. Over time, with effort and attention, we can bond slowly with each horse. As we find this balance, they begin to work cooperatively, in tandem. At first, it takes a lot of effort and practice, but eventually we reach the far opposite end of the spectrum. We can rest peacefully at the helm of the chariot, no longer even steering, with complete trust that our horses will take us effortlessly where we were meant to go.